Microsoft IT outage live. Only contact your GP if it's urgent. Patients told as internet fails worldwide. This is because of a company called CrowdStrike. So here's the CEO. So he goes on NBC today, and they ask him, like, how come there isn't redundancy? Why are you doing this on a Friday? Why are you doing it on a Saturday?
Well, when you look at the complexity of cybersecurity, you're always trying to stay one step ahead of the adversaries. Excuse me. Man.
Are you shitting me? She didn't answer the question, and they didn't press him on it. So Aaron Mate, he says CrowdStrike is the cyber firm that generated the claim that Russia hacked the DNC. We debunked that here. We were the first one to bring on Bill Binney and debunk this. CrowdStrike is the cyber firm that generated the claim that Russia hacked the DNC, setting off Russiagate, even though CrowdStrike was working for the Clinton campaign. The FBI.
President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID. This happened in Las Vegas.
What a moment in U.S. history. President Joe Biden officially dropping out of the 2024 race for the White House this afternoon, ending his bid for re-election. The man remains the commander-in-chief right now. He's not stepping down as president. He is infirm enough that he admits he can't do a second term, but he will hold on to the reins of power for some half a year still. Moments like this one, where he could not follow his own train of thought, that raised a 5-alarm fire for all normies coast to coast.
All those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did.
And then there was probably the most eye-popping moments of the debate when President Biden turned the conversation about.
We get it. He crashed and burned. All right. For disambiguation, Biden got COVID earlier in the week. The news you saw from Megyn Kelly was from earlier today. So several days between those stories, but I wanted to include, like, first, after Trump survives, like, the guy got COVID and now he's not going to campaign. And since he's not going to campaign, might as well not run the race. Might as well get someone stronger since they didn't kill Trump with the bullet. Deep state's going to have to dig a little deeper because that's how that works over there. Also, Jimmy had mentioned, they broke that story about the Russiagate and Bill Binney, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to say, Bill Binney, here's my IMDb from the interview I did with him, and it's called The Future of Freedom, an interview with NSA whistleblower William Binney. And I can take you over here to the YouTube, and this is where you can see that whole interview for free. It's about 3 hours. And what he says illustrates a lot about what you don't know about the deep state. He's very familiar with the deep state. I had a great conversation with him over dinner after we shot this interview about the deep state. We're defining the deep state tonight. This video has 1.1 million views. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out and start learning about the deep state, because it's going to be the topic of conversation starting right about in a few minutes. All right. So also, those poor people who got stranded, let's say at an airport or a bus station or whatever, wherever, these systems are out. Your credit card processing is out. What are your options? Well, if you still have an operating system on your smartphone, you can use crypto. If you can find people to accept crypto, you could keep some cash in a hidden compartment someplace on your person in your luggage. You could carry some gold backs. Do I have a gold back? I can show you a gold back. Hold on. Which looks like this. Right. I was at the bank the other day and they said, "What's that in your wallet?" Because I had to get my ID and stuff out. Let me zoom in. It's not a Federal Reserve note, so I can show it to you on video. I'm not going to get visited by the Secret Service, hopefully, for that. This is a New Hampshire goldback. It contains 1/1000th troy ounce of gold. If I want my gold back, I drop this in a crucible and the polymer evaporates and the gold is left. So this comes in different denominations. A 1 is worth like $4 in Federal Reserve notes, or $5. The 5, the 10, the 20, the 50, the notes get larger and they're heavier because they have more gold in them. This is uncounterfeitable according to the people who make it. They have a contest every year. It's made by lasers taking atoms of gold and making them into the pictures in the polymer. It's an interesting piece of currency, but you could also, they've got these that go out there too. So cash works in those situations. Gold would work if you can talk someone through like what it is and how they could have no knowledge and trust it. You could have currency. Not many people are going to do IOUs. It's too risky. There's too much unknowns. But how much do you need? You need enough for an Uber, some food, and some lodging. If you carry that much, then you're not so inconvenienced when those things go out. And if they went out once last week, there's a chance it's going to go out again sometime in the future. But now you have knowledge and you can plan for such things. And next time somebody gives you a birthday card with some money, go put that in some place. Like, I might have money in this Wazoo hat. I don't know if it has hidden compartments in case I forget, So you want to give yourself, I always call it like your present self thinking positively for your future self, because sometimes your future self's like, I messed up and I didn't plan for this. But your past self is like, I put an umbrella in the car, and now that it's raining, you have access to that, right? So I like to do a strong, diligent job of like, how can I help myself in the future when these other kind of Murphy's Law things kind of go on? So if you are of that mindset, you're not as inconvenienced as the people who just see the blue screen of death and they're panicking and they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to travel. They don't know how to acquire food. Their needs are going to be blocked along with a bunch of other people in that herd. So what you want to do is egress, get into a situation where you can deal with individuals on a logical, calm, cool, collected basis and not part of a feeding frenzy of people in need without knowing how to meet their needs. That's dangerous. Last but not least, the guy from CrowdStrike, he's pretty interesting, George Kurtz. I noticed that them trying to stay ahead of these viruses is much like Fauci and NIH trying to stay ahead of their viruses, right? Like the NIH is like, we got to stay ahead of the flu. Well, you can't predict nature, but we're going to try to predict nature. And that kind of caused the problem of the pandemic in a large way. Same thing. Instead of actually protecting from things that exist, they're going so far as to like break the thing that protects you. So now everything can get in or not work. Right. So that's an interesting part of history. But also I wanted that in tonight's time capsule because none of those events that you just heard about from George Kurtz last Thursday adversely affected the party that was the Republican National Convention. It had some of the best production value of any event of that sort I've ever seen. All their guests made it there on time. There was no like computer problems with the displays or anything that they like. It went off kind of without a hitch. And that was interesting in and of itself. But then I learned the next day there was this big computer outage. And I was like, how did they even do that thing last night without it becoming apparent to the audience that like the rest of the world's without the internet? That was a whole interesting aspect of last week's news. With all that, Scott, did you have any comments on that last block that we just played, or have you checked into this guy with the crowdsource CEO with the race team anymore?
No, I'd love to learn more about him. I mean, that was very awkward presentation on there. I was going to say I got my first gold back at Freedom Fest. Got my 1,000th. Yeah. The gold back people were there, so we were chatting with them for a little bit because I kind of learned a little bit about that operation. So that was pretty cool. Yeah,
I think his name's Benjamin Schaefer, the guy I know that does the gold backs at the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And I'm sure he probably travels to other festivals too. And then there's like Colorado has gold backs. You could say, I want to start a gold back franchise in your state. You call the people that have it and you can license the technology for you.
I was talking to him.
Money.
I was telling him, I was like, man, like out of all the states, like Tennessee feels like it would be right in line with, I think it's like Nevada, Wyoming, New Hampshire, and a couple others. I can't remember. I think there was 5 total states, but I was like, why don't we get Tennessee on board? He's like, yeah, we're working on it. So that was cool. And yeah, I just dodged a bullet on the whole air traffic thing. I flew back on Tuesday. And so, yeah, definitely dodged a bullet there. That would have been frustrating. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. And again, like I was saying in the previous segment, it's like I heard. So then a lot of people were posting clips of Alex saying like, they're going to attempt this assassination. They're going to try and assassinate. He was saying like they're going to assassinate Trump and then they're going to launch cyber attacks and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, it's like right on script. So yeah,
they're not going to change the direction and objective of what they have. So to call out their potential tactics on the field is not very difficult at this point because Roger Stone said years ago, they get your reputation, then they do the lawfare, then they want to put you in prison, then they kill you. Yeah. Like if these things don't work, this other thing that it works all the time and they do it all the time and get away with it. Because the people who investigate are often the people who are doing it.
Yep. Totally.
Secret Service can't investigate itself, so FBI is going to come investigate. Well, FBI is the deep state representative, so Secret Service under DHS. So it's like deep state investigate, deep state tell everyone else, lone gunman, nothing to see here. They're not getting desperate. It's what they're trying to make us believe. But I saw that all as a sign of desperation, and they didn't make the first down.
No, they fumbled big time, which, there's that whole side of the argument too. And I'm sure we'll get into all of it tonight where it's like, I mean, like, what a glorious way to like get Mark Zuckerberg to start cheering for you, right? Is to pull something like this. Like, how do we get Mark Zuckerberg on our teams? Like, bro, I got an idea. A little bit of catch up.
He's like, he saw where the other train was going, I guess.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures, they're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come